My sister banned me from her wedding, so I vanished to Japan. A week later, her big day collapsed and my phone exploded. My phone buzzed on the marble countertop of my downtown Chicago office. It was my sister Brittany. I smiled, expecting another frantic question about centerpieces or whether we should go with the salmon or chicken for her wedding reception. Instead, the message made my blood run cold. Hey Lauren, so the venue capacity is tighter than we thought. There's no place for you at the wedding anymore. Sorry. Just like that. A casual text message. Like she was canceling a lunch date, not erasing me from the most important day of her life. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I'm 29 years old. I've spent the last 5 years building Elegant Affairs, my boutique wedding planning company here in Chicago. While my older sister Brittany was always the golden child, homecoming queen, sorority president, the one who could do no wrong, I was the behind-the-scenes sister. The one who made magic happen without needing the spotlight. I loved what I did. There's nothing quite like the moment when a bride walks into her perfectly designed reception space and her eyes fill with tears of joy. The scent of white roses and eucalyptus, the soft glow of string lights, the satisfied smile when everything comes together flawlessly. That's my drug. When Brittany got engaged to her college boyfriend Derek last Christmas, I was genuinely thrilled. I immediately offered my services as her wedding gift. Everything on me, sis, I'd said, hugging her tight. Your dream wedding, completely free. For 7 months, I poured my heart and soul into her October wedding. I spent countless weekends scouting venues until we found the perfect historic mansion in Lake Forest. I negotiated with the best vendors in the city, Antonio's Catering, who normally had a 6-month waiting list, Bloom and Blossom florists who created those Instagram-worthy arrangements, and even secured the Riverside String Quartet who'd played at a Blackhawks player's wedding. I did it because I loved my sister. What I didn't realize was that this love wasn't reciprocated. Staring at that text message, my hands started shaking. No phone call. No real explanation. Just a digital dismissal, as if I were some distant acquaintance they'd forgotten about until the last minute. I immediately called our mom, expecting her to share my outrage. Mom, did you see Brittany's text? My voice was trembling. There was a long pause, followed by that familiar sigh that meant I was about to be disappointed. Honey, Derek's family is enormous. They had to make some difficult choices. Please don't take this personally. Don't take it personally? My own mother was asking me not to take my sister's betrayal personally. Mom, I've worked on this wedding for 7 months. For free. I've invested thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours. That was your choice to give that as a gift, Lauren, she interrupted, her tone sharp. You can't hold a gift over someone's head. Don't make this harder for Brittany. It's her special day. The line went dead. My own mother had hung up on me. That's when I knew I was truly alone in this. But what they didn't know was that being alone meant I held all the power. I called Brittany next, needing to hear this explanation straight from her mouth. It took 4 tries before she answered. What's up? She said, sounding annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. What's up, Brittany? What's up is that text message. You're uninviting me from your wedding via text. I heard her scoff. Look, Derek's college roommate is flying in from Denver with his whole family. They'd be hurt if they didn't get seats. You live 20 minutes away, you get it, right? It's just numbers. Just numbers. That's all I was to her. But I planned everything, Britt. I found the venue, chose the caterer, designed the entire layout. And we're grateful, she said in that fake sweet voice she'd perfected in high school. We really are. But the guest list is my decision, and I can't just uninvite Derek's people. It wouldn't look right. I was speechless. The casual cruelty was breathtaking. But then she delivered the final blow. Oh, by the way, I still need you to handle the final payment to Bloom and Blossom next week. The deposit you put down didn't cover their full invoice. Can you take care of that? My jaw dropped. She wasn't just excluding me from her wedding, she still expected me to work for it and pay for it from the sidelines. Are you serious right now? It's just business, Lauren. Keep it professional. That was the moment something inside me snapped. 3 days later, my father called. His voice was cheerful, which immediately put me on guard. Hey sweetheart, how are you doing? I'm fine, Dad. Good, good. Listen, the family is pooling money together for a big wedding gift for Brittany and Derek. We're helping them with a down payment on that condo in Lincoln Park. Your contribution is $3,000. You can just Venmo it to me." I gripped the phone tighter. "Dad, I'm not even invited to the wedding." His cheerful tone vanished instantly. "This isn't about the wedding, Lauren. This is about family. Are you really going to be this selfish over a seating arrangement? Don't punish your sister because you're upset." Punish my sister? I was the one who'd been discarded like yesterday's newspaper. I was the one they were still trying to squeeze for money and labor. "I won't be contributing," I said firmly. He hung up on me. Just like Mom had. The silence that followed felt deafening. Final. But the worst was yet to come. A few days later, I was scrolling through Instagram before bed when I saw it. My cousin Amanda had posted photos from Brittany's bridal shower. The event was held at the Garden Terrace in Evanston, the exact venue I had recommended and researched for her. There they all were, the bridesmaids in the dusty rose dresses I'd helped pick out, laughing and holding champagne flutes, surrounding my glowing sister. The caption read, "Celebrating our beautiful bride-to-be with the A-Team." 2 hearts. The A-Team. There it was, in bright, cheerful font, public confirmation that I had never been part of their inner circle. I was just the hired help who'd been dismissed once the real party started. I closed the app, those happy images burning in my mind. The hurt was transforming into something colder, harder. Something that felt like fuel. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. 2 weeks before the wedding, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Brittany, and her voice was pure panic. "Lauren, thank God you answered. It's a complete disaster." I rubbed my eyes, still groggy. "What's wrong?" "The Riverside String Quartet just cancelled. Their violinist broke her wrist in a car accident. The wedding is in 14 days, and I have no music. You have to fix this." She didn't ask. She commanded. She expected me to jump back into my role as the fixer, the problem solver, the one who cleaned up everyone else's messes. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in my life, I didn't give her what she wanted. "I'm not your wedding planner anymore, Brittany." There was stunned silence on the other end. Then her panic transformed into pure venom. "I can't believe you. After everything I've done for you, you're being so incredibly petty. You're probably enjoying this, aren't you? You probably love watching this fall apart." I didn't say another word. I hung up the phone. The click echoed in my quiet apartment, and in that moment, my decision crystallized. I wasn't going to sit at home feeling sorry for myself while they scrambled. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd broken me. I walked to my laptop and opened a travel website. Within minutes, I'd booked a non-refundable 10-day trip to Tokyo, Japan. My flight was scheduled to depart the morning of her wedding. But here's what Brittany and my parents never understood about my business. I don't just plan pretty parties. I'm a risk management expert. I protect my clients, and more importantly, I protect myself. Every vendor contract I sign is a fortress of legal clauses and conditions. They're professional, binding agreements, not casual handshake deals. I'd learned early in my career that you have to protect your work, because clients will try to take advantage if you don't. And here was the crucial detail my family had overlooked in their rush to use and discard me. Every single contract for Brittany's wedding was signed not by her, not by my parents, but by me. The historic Whitmore Mansion, Antonio's Catering, Bloom and Blossom Florists, Premier Linens, all of it was contracted through Elegant Affairs LLC. The deposits they assumed were personal gifts from their loving daughter and sister. Those were business expenses, paid from my corporate account and properly documented. They thought I would just roll over and accept their humiliation. They saw me as the quiet little sister, the pushover they could always count on to absorb their selfishness and come back for more. But they never bothered to read the fine print. They never thought to ask whose name was actually on all that paperwork. What they didn't know was that legally, the entire wedding didn't belong to Brittany. It belonged to my company. And every one of those contracts contained a standard clause that the final balance was due exactly 1 week before the event date. If that balance wasn't paid, the contract was automatically void. Before I did anything, I needed confirmation. I called my friend Rebecca, a sharp contract attorney who'd helped me draft my business agreements when I first started Elegant Affairs. We met at Starbucks in the Loop, and I spread the contracts across our small table. I explained everything: the text message, the family pressure, the bridal shower exclusion, the demand that I keep working and paying while being banned from attending. Rebecca listened patiently, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When I finished, she picked up the venue contract, scanning the terms carefully. "Lauren," she said finally, her voice firm, "you're holding all the cards here. These vendors have legal obligations to you and only you. If the final payment isn't made by the deadline, you have every right to cancel. The deposits are fully refundable to your company." She looked me straight in the eyes. "This isn't revenge. This is business. They treated your professional services like a doormat, and now you have the right to pull that doormat out from under them." Her validation was the final push I needed. This was about respect. About reclaiming my worth. That night, a message appeared in our family group chat, the one I was somehow still part of. "Crisis averted. Found an amazing DJ last minute. See? Everything works out when you don't let negative people bring you down. Party popper." Reading those words, I didn't feel hurt anymore. I felt nothing but cold, clear resolve. They were living in their bubble of arrogance, convinced they'd won and that I was just sulking at home. They had no idea the ground was about to disappear beneath their feet. I spent the next afternoon doing what I do best: meticulous administrative work. Sitting at my desk overlooking the Chicago River, I drafted 4 separate emails with calm professional precision. The language was polite, direct, and legally airtight. I attached the relevant contract sections, highlighting the payment deadlines and cancellation clauses for their convenience. Asterisk to whom it may concern. As the contracted client for the event scheduled on October 15th, I'm writing to inform you that I will not be remitting the final payment as stipulated in our agreement. Please consider this official notice of cancellation per the terms of our contract. Please process the refund of my deposit to the business account on file at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Lauren Mitchell, CEO, Elegant Affairs LLC. I didn't write these emails with anger or spite. I wrote them with the cool efficiency of a business owner making a sound financial decision. Each email was scheduled to send automatically at 9 a.m. the following morning, exactly 1 week before the wedding, as specified in the contracts. That evening, I allowed myself a small glass of wine and began researching Tokyo. The cherry blossom season was over, but October in Japan would be beautiful. I found a charming ryokan in the Shibuya district and booked it. I researched the best sushi restaurants, planned visits to ancient temples, even looked into a traditional tea ceremony class. For the first time in months, I felt excited about something that had nothing to do with my family's drama. The emails deployed at exactly 9 a.m. For the first few hours, there was silence. I imagined the messages landing in various inboxes, being opened by venue managers and catering coordinators. I pictured the polite but firm phone calls being made. I was in a client meeting, discussing centerpiece options for a December wedding, when I felt my phone buzzing incessantly in my purse. I ignored it, maintaining my professional focus. At around noon, the real chaos began. The first call Brittany received was from James Patterson, the events manager at Whitmore Mansion, a distinguished man in his 60s whom I'd worked with on several high-end weddings. "Good afternoon, Miss Mitchell," he said in his refined voice. "I'm calling to confirm that we received a cancellation notice from Elegant Affairs regarding your event next Saturday. I'm terribly sorry, but we can no longer hold the date for you." Brittany laughed, thinking it was some kind of mistake. "That's ridiculous. My sister is just being dramatic. The wedding is absolutely happening." "I'm afraid the contract is with her company," Mr. Patterson replied politely. "The final payment was not received by the deadline. We've had to release the date per our policy." She hung up on him, confused and irritated. But then Antonio from the catering company called with the same message. Then Maria from Bloom and Blossom. Then David from Premier Linens. One by one, the foundation of her perfect day was crumbling. I was having lunch at a quiet cafe in River North when my phone finally rang. Brittany's name flashed on the screen. I took a sip of my soup, let it ring twice more, then answered. "What did you do?" she screamed, her voice shrill with panic. "The venue cancelled. The caterer cancelled. They all cancelled." I could hear my mother shrieking in the background, "Lauren, you have to fix this immediately. This is a nightmare. How could you do this to your own sister?" My voice, in perfect contrast to their hysteria, was absolutely calm. "I didn't do anything to you, Brittany. You told me there was no place for me at your wedding, so I removed myself and my business from it. You ruined my wedding to get back at me," she screamed, her voice cracking with rage. "No, Brittany," I replied steadily. "You tried to humiliate me after I gave you months of free work and thousands of dollars. You don't get to treat me like garbage and still benefit from my professional services." Then I heard my father's voice boom through the speaker. "You will call them back and fix this right now, young lady. This is your family." "I can't," I said simply. "The cancellations have been processed." I paused for effect, then delivered the final blow. "By the way, the deposits, which totaled over $15,000, have already been refunded to my business account. I forwarded you all the confirmation emails." The line went dead silent. The screaming stopped. The pleading stopped. In that moment, they finally understood the scope of what they'd lost. It wasn't just my help, it was the venue, the food, the flowers, the money. Everything. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the first time in my adult life, their crisis wasn't mine to solve. The next morning, while they frantically tried to salvage their disaster, I would be boarding a plane to Tokyo. The next morning, October 15th, what should have been Brittany's wedding day, I was sitting in the first-class lounge at O'Hare International Airport. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched planes taxi on the runway while sipping fresh coffee and eating a perfectly prepared croissant. My boarding pass to Tokyo rested on the table beside my phone, which I'd finally turned back on. The screen immediately lit up with notifications, 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, and 89 text messages. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my business email. 3 beautiful confirmations sat in my inbox, deposit refunds totaling $15,847 from my wedding vendors, all processed cleanly and professionally. At 10:30 a.m., my flight was called. As I walked toward the gate, rolling my designer suitcase behind me, I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. The irony wasn't lost on me. At this exact moment, Brittany should have been having her hair styled at the salon, surrounded by her bridesmaids, getting ready for her dream wedding. Instead, she was probably sitting in our parents' living room, frantically calling every venue in Chicago, begging someone to accommodate 150 guests on zero notice. The flight to Tokyo was 13 hours of pure peace. I watched movies, read a novel I'd been meaning to finish for months, and actually slept deeply for the first time since receiving that devastating text message. When I landed at Narita Airport the next morning, Tokyo time, I felt like a completely different person. The bustling energy of the city, the polite efficiency of the staff, the beautiful foreign script everywhere, it all felt like stepping into a new life. My ryokan in Shibuya was everything I'd hoped for: traditional tatami mats, sliding paper doors, and a view of a small Zen garden. The elderly proprietress, Mrs. Tanaka, showed me how to properly wear the provided yukata and explained the etiquette for the communal hot spring bath. For the first time in 7 months, no one needed anything from me. I spent my days exploring the controlled chaos of Shibuya Crossing, the serene beauty of Sensoji Temple, the incredible sushi at Jiro's legendary restaurant. I took that tea ceremony class and learned the meditative precision of each movement. I bought beautiful silk scarves in Harajuku and handmade pottery in traditional shops. But the real healing happened in the quiet moments. Sitting in temple gardens, writing in my journal, finally processing the depth of my family's betrayal without the immediate pressure to fix everything. On my 4th day in Tokyo, while watching the sunset from my hotel window, I finally decided to check my voicemails. The first few were predictable: Brittany sobbing, my mother demanding I fix this mess, my father threatening to disown me if I didn't make things right. But as the messages progressed, the tone shifted dramatically. By day 3, Brittany's voice was hoarse from crying. "Lauren, please call me back. We tried everywhere. No one can accommodate us. Derek's family is furious. His parents spent thousands on flights from Seattle. Please, I'm begging you." My mother's messages grew increasingly desperate. "Your sister is having a breakdown. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. How can you be so heartless? This is your own flesh and blood." But it was the final voicemail, left just 6 hours earlier, that truly revealed how completely their world had collapsed. It was Brittany, her voice barely a whisper. "Lauren, Derek called off the engagement. He said he can't marry someone who would treat family this way. He said if I could be this cruel to my own sister, what would I do to him someday? His parents are demanding their ring back. Our relationship is over. Everything is over. I hope you're happy. I saved the message and set my phone aside. Sitting there in that peaceful Tokyo evening, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the city below, I realized something profound. I wasn't happy about Derek leaving her. I wasn't celebrating her pain. But I also wasn't responsible for it. They had created this disaster themselves, through months of casual cruelty and thoughtless selfishness. I had simply removed myself from their toxic equation. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I extended my trip. I called the airline and moved my return flight back another week. I wasn't ready to go back to their chaos. I had more healing to do. My extended time in Japan became a masterclass in rediscovering myself. In Kyoto, I stayed at a traditional temple where monks practiced morning meditation. I learned to find peace in silence, to separate my worth from other people's demands. I spent hours walking through bamboo forests, the gentle rustling overhead like nature's own therapy session. In the ancient city of Nara, I fed sacred deer and marveled at thousand-year-old temples that had weathered countless storms and survived. Each day, I felt stronger, more centered. The desperate need to please everyone, the constant anxiety about family approval, it was all melting away like snow in spring. On my 10th day in Tokyo, I made a decision that would change everything. Sitting in a quiet cafe in the artistic district of Shimokitazawa, I opened my laptop and began typing. The truth about family loyalty, a personal story. I wrote for 3 hours straight, pouring out the entire experience. The months of free work, the cruel dismissal, the family's continued financial demands even after excluding me, and yes, the nuclear option I'd chosen. I wasn't writing it for revenge or public sympathy. I was writing it for every person who'd ever been taken for granted by the people who claimed to love them. Every sibling who'd been treated as a resource rather than a person. Every family member who'd been expected to smile and take abuse in the name of keeping the peace. I posted it on my professional blog, the one I used to showcase wedding success stories and planning tips. Within hours, it had been shared hundreds of times. By the time I boarded my flight home to Chicago 2 days later, it had gone viral. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people sharing their own stories of family exploitation, of being expected to give everything while receiving nothing in return. Wedding planners from across the country reached out to share similar experiences with entitled clients and family members. But most importantly, potential clients began contacting me. Real clients, who appreciated professional expertise and understood the value of what I provided. When I landed at O'Hare, I had 17 new consultation requests waiting in my inbox. The ride home to my downtown apartment felt surreal. Chicago looked exactly the same, but I was fundamentally different. I'd left as someone desperate for family approval and returned as a woman who knew her own worth. My apartment felt like a sanctuary after 2 weeks away. I unpacked slowly, placing my beautiful Tokyo purchases around the space, the silk scarf draped over my reading chair, the delicate tea set displayed in my kitchen, the small Buddha statue on my bedroom dresser. That evening, as I was settling back into my routine, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother standing in the hallway, looking older than I remembered. I considered not answering, but curiosity won. "Lauren," she said when I opened the door, her voice quiet and tired. "Can we talk?" I gestured for her to come in. She sat stiffly on my couch, looking around at my apartment as if seeing it for the first time, really seeing it. The successful business owner space, the evidence of the life I'd built entirely on my own. She's not doing well," Mom began carefully. "She's been staying with us since Derek left. She barely leaves her room." I waited, not offering comfort or solutions. "Your blog post," she continued, her voice even quieter. "People are sharing it everywhere. Some of Brittany's friends sent it to her. She's been reading the comments." I raised an eyebrow. The comments where strangers are telling their own stories of being mistreated by family? Mom nodded, looking uncomfortable. "She's starting to understand what she did to you, what we all did." "And?" I asked, my voice neutral. "She wants to apologize. To really apologize, not just say sorry so you'll fix things. She wants to make amends." I considered this carefully. The old Lauren would have immediately softened, would have rushed to forgive and restore family harmony. The new Lauren, the one who'd found her strength in Tokyo temples and bamboo forests, was more cautious. Mom, I said finally, I spent years being the family doormat. The one who absorbed everyone's selfishness and came back for more. That version of me is gone. She looked stricken. So you'll never forgive us? Forgiveness and being a doormat are two different things, I replied. I can forgive you and still maintain boundaries. I can love Brittany and still refuse to be treated like garbage. I stood up, signaling the conversation was ending. If she wants to apologize, really apologize, not just say words to make herself feel better, she knows where to find me. But the old dynamic where I absorb everyone's bad behavior to keep the peace? That's over forever. After Mom left, I sat in my apartment feeling something I'd rarely experienced in my adult life, complete peace with my choices. The next morning, I had 6 new client consultations scheduled. My business was thriving. My self-respect was intact. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care whether my family approved or not. 3 months later, I was putting the finishing touches on what would become one of my most celebrated weddings. The bride, Amanda Chun, was a successful surgeon who appreciated professionalism and had paid my full fee without question. The groom, Robert Kim, owned a chain of successful restaurants and understood the value of expert planning. Their winter wedding at the Art Institute of Chicago was everything Brittany's could have been: elegant, sophisticated, and flawlessly executed. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light over tables adorned with white orchids and silver accents. The Chicago Symphony Orchestra Quartet filled the space with classical music that made guests stop mid-conversation to listen. As I watched Amanda and Robert share their first dance, I felt the deep satisfaction that came from doing what I loved for people who truly valued it. This was what I'd been trying to create for Brittany, this moment of perfect joy. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a split second, my stomach tightened with old anxiety. But it wasn't for my family. It was for Mrs. Tanaka, the elderly proprietress for my Tokyo ryokan, sending me a photo of cherry blossoms beginning to bloom. Spring comes again, Lauren-san. New beginnings are always possible. I smiled, taking a photo of the beautiful wedding reception to send back to her. It had been 6 weeks since my conversation with Mom, and I hadn't heard from Brittany. According to the family grapevine, via my cousin Amanda, who'd become my unofficial family news source, Brittany had started therapy and was slowly working through what she now called the worst mistake of my life. Derek hadn't come back. His final message to her, according to Amanda, was that he couldn't marry someone who would destroy their own sister over a seating chart. Apparently, his family had been appalled by the whole situation, especially when my viral blog post made it clear what had really happened. But honestly, their drama felt distant now. Like something that had happened to someone else. My business was booming. The viral blog post, instead of hurting my reputation, had established me as someone with strong professional boundaries who wouldn't be taken advantage of. Brides were specifically seeking me out because they wanted a planner who would stand up for quality and refuse to compromise on excellence. I'd hired 2 assistants and was looking into expanding to Milwaukee and Indianapolis. The girl who used to beg for family approval had built something remarkable entirely on her own terms. As Amanda and Robert's reception wound down and guests began filtering out into the snowy Chicago evening, I was packing up my supplies when I heard a familiar voice. Lauren. I turned around to see Brittany standing near the entrance, looking smaller somehow than I remembered. She was wearing a simple black coat, her hair shorter than before, and her face bore none of the entitled confidence that had once defined her. How did you know I was here? I asked, my voice neutral. Amanda posted about your wedding on Instagram, she said quietly. I've been following your work. This is beautiful. I nodded, continuing to pack my supplies. Thank you. Can we talk? Please? I looked at her for a long moment. The old Lauren would have immediately said yes, would have dropped everything to accommodate her sister's needs. The new Lauren considered carefully. You have 5 minutes, I said finally. Brittany took a shaky breath. I've been in therapy for 2 months. And I've spent every session talking about what I did to you. What we all did. I waited. I read your blog post, she continued. And I read every single comment. Hundreds of people sharing stories about being treated exactly the way we treated you. And I realized. Her voice cracked. I realized I didn't just lose a sister. I lost the best person in my life. Tears were streaming down her face now. Derek was right to leave me. You don't treat people you love the way I treated you. You don't take and take and take, then throw them away when they're no longer useful. I felt something shift in my chest, but I maintained my composure. I can't undo what I did, Brittany said, her voice barely a whisper. I can't give you back those 7 months of work, or take back that horrible text message, or erase the way Mom and Dad treated you. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see how awful we were. She reached into her purse and pulled out a check, holding it out to me with shaking hands. This is for $15,000. It's everything I had in my savings, and I borrowed the rest from my 401k. It's not enough to pay you what your services were actually worth, but it's a start. I looked at the check but didn't take it. I don't want your money, Brittany. Her face crumpled. Then what can I do? How can I ever make this right? I studied her face carefully. The desperate need for immediate forgiveness, for everything to go back to normal, was still there. But underneath it, I could see something that hadn't been there before, genuine remorse. You can prove that you've actually changed, I said finally. Not just with words, but with actions. Over time. Without expecting me to just forgive and forget because you feel bad. Hope flickered in her eyes. How? You can respect my boundaries. You can treat me like a professional when it comes to my business. You can stop expecting me to absorb everyone else's emotions and fix everyone else's problems. I paused. And you can understand that forgiveness is a process, not an event. She nodded eagerly. Yes. Yes, I can do that. We'll see, I said, not unkindly but not warmly either. Actions, Brittany. Not words. As I walked out into the snowy Chicago night, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't expected. The old chapter of my life, the one where I begged for scraps of approval from people who didn't value me, was truly closed. The new chapter, where I knew my worth and insisted others recognize it too, was just beginning. 6 months later, Brittany and I would have coffee once a month. She would consistently respect my boundaries, pay my full rates when she needed professional services, and slowly rebuild trust through consistent actions rather than empty words. Our parents would take longer to come around, but eventually they too would learn that the new Lauren wasn't someone who could be guilt, manipulated, or taken for granted. And me? I built the life I'd always dreamed of, one where my value wasn't determined by other people's approval, but by my own standards and achievements. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is remove yourself from situations where you're not valued. Sometimes you have to choose yourself first. It's never easy, but it's always worth it. If you've ever had to choose yourself over people who refuse to see your worth, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, and you deserve to be heard.